Yeah.
to your voice, to your mouth. You'll even
You
sound
like
smooth.
that?
Trick, yeah.
Cool.
Like back here, I'm an echoey geek, but up here, I'm like real baritone.
I'm still learning.
Me too. Me too.
I'm still learning.
Hashtag me too. Sam Dancer, another person that I only know from some of maybe his most intense moments in his life. My words, not his. Physically intense. We've only interacted when he's pushing his body to the absolute limits. Freakish physique at that. My impression and my interpretation of Sam, and we don't talk before the show, literally the first things you're hearing us say, bam, we're recording. My interpretation and my impression of Sam Dancer is that he is on a mission, and I don't know when it started, but we'll figure that out if I'm right, to explore the deepest facets of his ability to love his fellow man and to share that love so that other people can also express that and feel free to be open to love and to express love. And he shares that journey on his, ooh, I got a little emotional for a second.
Mm.
Shares that journey on his Instagram, and it's pretty obvious because he showers love on his friends and his that he's used his platform to shower love on people basically, and to share the journey of him exploring the ability to do that and receive it.
Wow.
That's the
That's
same day,
heavy.
according to the 2 hours that I spent going through your Instagram last night.
Yeah, you did some research.
Just a little bit.
You know,
If Brian was
we did a podcast together a couple years ago. You
Matt did
remember that?
most. Yeah, I do remember that. But Matt did most of the talking, right?
He did.
I was way into his marijuana stuff. His
Yeah.
marijuana farming. So
He
he did
usually
most of the
does all the
talking.
talking.
I'm that friend too. If you and I were to go onto a podcast together, I wouldn't let you talk either.
Well, I appreciate the such a generous introduction. Still working on all that stuff that you so graciously, eloquently put, but I don't think I'm quite there yet. But I appreciate it, and I'm glad it at least seems like it's something I'm working on.
Sam, where were you born?
I was born in Quincy, Illinois. Well, I wasn't born in Quincy, Illinois. I was born in Springfield, but my entire life that I can recall has taken place in Quincy, Illinois, and then pretty much been there my whole life. Um, Me and my wife got married. We moved to Cincinnati, then we moved to San Francisco, then we moved to San Diego, and now we're back in Quincy, Illinois as our home base.
And one of the vehicles that Sam uses to get his message across is fitness and health. He shares his journey pretty intimately on there on his Instagram, and I think it's a typical journey of a young man, but it leaves the typical path as he gets older and he sort of chooses to work on himself in a way. I think a lot of people are chasing, riches, success, and security. And Sam, at the point where some of us like stopped the drinking and smoking and partying and playing, he started. That's when he started sort of his journey of spreading love. Um,
Mm.
so tell me about your so you're born in Quincy, Illinois. Is that a small town? Is it a suburb?
Yeah, it's a really small town. We're looking at like 40,000 people, and then all the towns around Quincy are 400, 500, 600,000 in population. So Quincy to me is a small place, but to the people who live outside of Quincy, Quincy's like the big city. Um, but it's all farmland and plains, so typical typical Illinois scenery. But
And so you and so you're raised there,
yeah,
and you live, and do you still live there? Where do you live now?
yeah, I'm in Quincy, Illinois right now.
So you went back
Um,
to your home.
yeah, I feel called to be here. It's Quincy feels like it's like 10 years behind on everything. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a really good thing. We tend to kind of look at it as a bad thing. Just it takes a while for, you name it, whether it be fashion or just cultural norms or whatever it is. It takes a while for it to reach the Midwest. And and like I said, maybe that's not such a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's gonna maybe make it a little bit easier of a job for us to do what we feel so passionate about doing here in our hometown, and that's just really, yeah, changing the culture. We want Quincy, and I'm sure you visited places like this, Sevan, where I remember the first time I visited, I don't know if it was like Boulder or it was somewhere in Colorado, and I hadn't traveled much, and I saw all these people out riding their bikes, people out jogging, people were out, and people aren't really out here. Um, but it also doesn't really have the infrastructure to support um, activities. So a besides me and my wife, there's a couple people in our circle who are really working hard to change that here in our town and make it a place where people are active, people are healthy, people are well, people are um, communal. We really want to build that up. We want, and it already kind of, it being the nature of a small town, people, we all tend to know each other fairly well, but it's not as active as, say, like just a bigger city and or just a place with better weather. And I don't want to make it seem like that's the reason why we don't have fun things to do here in Quincy, just because the weather's shit. It gets really, really hot and it gets kind of nasty in the winters, but I've traveled to places that are really, really hot and they're still having a good time, doing activities, going out, having fun. And I've been to places that are really, really cold. They're out and about. And I just it's kind of starting here with our gym. I owned a CrossFit gym for 7 years, and then decided to unaffiliate, affiliate, and kind of, because every time people thought about CrossFit here in my town, they thought of what I was doing, the CrossFit Games, and they were terrified of it. And although I'm very, I'm kind of, I'm one of those people that thought one of the best things that CrossFit had in terms of brand visibility were things such as like the regional competitions and such like that. But at the same time, although it was making the brand more visible, and sure, a lot of people that saw that thought it was really, really cool. But the people we need to really truly reach are very intimidated by the sport, and that, at least for me, that attachment to the sport with the word CrossFit was really getting in the way of me being able to reach the people that I feel called to reach and want to help. And so much of our business model, while we were affiliated with CrossFit, it seemed to be more focused around people who were already generally physically fit. And I want the sick people. I want the hurt people. I want the people who, yeah, who need us most. And so I've been working hard over the years to, I worked hard before in the past. I worked really hard to make sure that like this gym never became a competitive gym. So for years, my clients barely knew that I even competed. It wasn't until maybe they'd see me on TV or something and be like, "Hey, I saw you doing this. What was that all about?" Like I don't hang all my my jerseys or my podium shirts or any of my name plaques out or anything. It's if you came into my gym, you wouldn't know that there'd been someone who's gone to the CrossFit Games 4 times here. So I really worked hard to protect my gym from it ever becoming super competitive, because that's where I started to see where the wheels would fall off for a lot of people when it would get, sure, there's some great things about the intensity that is derived from competition, but I don't know that that's a sustainable practice. And I'm not, and just to be clear, I love CrossFit. I love the CrossFit culture. I'm not bashing CrossFit. It just, there were some things that I personally thought that I could maybe do a little bit differently that would allow me to have a greater reach in the town that I live in. And like I said earlier, I feel really called to be here in Quincy, Illinois. This really, I've traveled a lot. I've gotten to go visit some beautiful places that I'm revered, and I hate even saying it's a weird thing to think about. I'm treated much differently here in Quincy, Illinois, than I am in San Diego or a big city. In a big city, I can book seminars every single weekend. I can charge people $100, $200, $300 to consult with me, and in Quincy, I can't do it. Nobody cares who I am here in Quincy, Illinois. And not that I'm trying to make it so that people do care who I am. I don't really care that people know who I am or anything. All I really care about is getting getting people to care care how I care about my wellness and my community. And I understand that I could take a much easier route and move to San Diego completely full time, or move somewhere where it's really, really nice all the time, and where I actually have market value compared to here. It's yeah. Sometimes it's frustrating.
To contextualize this for some people, Sam is very, very well known in the CrossFit community all around the world, all 7 continents, for being extremely, extremely strong. His physique was a bit of an outlier for anyone who ever made it to the games. He's freakishly strong. He's stout. He's super duper broad, with a relatively small waist, and he looks like an action figure. But if you go to his Instagram, you will not see endless posts of him doing super heavy snatches, super heavy deadlifts. You will actually see what he's talking about. You'll see him working with a guy in a wheelchair who's never been able to straighten his arm, and Sam's working on it with helping the guy straighten his arm for the first time, and because he has some sort of neurological issue. Or you'll see him working with someone on an assault bike, and they're in a wheelchair, and they're using it in a reverse manner that you have to be innovative to use. So everything he's saying, you will see that. But he also doesn't hide his body, which I think, and this is a little bit of shift going back to what we started talking about. When I see the way you dress and I see the way you behave, I see this guy who is telling the world, in most cases, you would say, oh, this is a guy who just loves his body and wants to show it off, which I think is totally appropriate. I think that's a great thing to do. But what you really see in Sam's pictures is a guy who's trying to show you that he's vulnerable. Hey, I'm super duper open and vulnerable. Not vulnerable in the sense, maybe vulnerable is not the right word. It has too much connotation. That he's open. Like, hey, I'm open. Here I am. Here I lie naked for you to approach me. Here I am with a smile on my face. I know this may not look like your typical open. My physique doesn't look like a typical open person with the prejudices that people have of the grunting buff guy in the gym. But after just a few posts, you see, oh, he's presenting himself for the world to examine and come close to. Come take a closer look. I am open to you. I'll hug you. And it's interesting because there's probably an equal amount of people who are like tripped out by that because they're not used to seeing a guy surfing in a Speedo, or a bikini, a banana hammock. But on the other hand, once you dig in a little further, you see, oh, this is the dude I want to hang out with. This is where the fun's at. Are you conscious of that, or is that just the way
You
it
know
is?
what? I I'm legally blind, so
Oh, so you don't know how funny you dress.
I can't even see it. I don't even know.
That explains the way you dress.
I am
By the
legally
way,
blind.
one more thing, when Sam says we, he's talking about Jennifer Dancer. That's his wife, and they are like they might as well be conjoined, joined at the hips.
Yeah,
They're
we pretty much
inseparable,
are.
and you can see it in his expression of his art too. Sorry, go on. So tell me, so
But
you're legally blind.
yeah. So I can't.
Do you know how hard that
That's
is to believe too? Like
it
when I
is. It's
first met
hard
you,
for me
you
to.
told me
It's
that.
hard for me to believe too. Sometimes. Every once in a while, it um, I'm reminded of it. Um, and we can maybe get to that in a little bit. There are some times where I do get a little anxious when I can't see. But for the most part, I manage it really, really well, and you would never know unless I told you. Or you'd think I was mad at you because I tend to do this a lot. I squint my eyes to see who someone is, and it looks like I'm just ready to pounce on you and beat you up. But I can't. Yeah, I can't see, and because I can't see, I I don't. I can obviously still see, like there's still visible things coming into my retina, and I'm catching some things. It's very foggy, but I to a degree have kind of checked out with that faculty, and I don't I don't work really hard to see things. I just kind of mosey through, flow through, and I tend to not try really hard to maybe yeah to see someone's face. So when I'm wearing maybe a speedo or I'm dressing in something very flamboyant, I'm not seeing people's reactions, which would probably change my decision making on what I wear sometimes, or maybe make me feel a little insecure. But that blindness has really kind of put a protective barrier over me from really giving a shit about what other people think in regards to how I look or how I dress. Um, and I honestly, I feel, and it's not to show off my body. Uh, if you, I mean, I appreciate the compliments on my physique, but and you did mention it a little bit. My physique isn't the CrossFit standard by when we're talking about the professional sport of it. I'm probably 20, 30 pounds heavier than the average CrossFit athlete. Maybe the largest, heaviest athlete to probably even compete at the games. But I don't look like they look. And there have been times in my life that I don't want to say I was ashamed of my body, but I knew it didn't look like the others. Um, I weighed upwards of 275 pounds in college, and even still there, could look around and see other athletes who had far greater physiques. And so, same thing here in CrossFit. I'm able to look around and definitely tell there's a difference between my physique and the
Pat
kind
Burke
of the standard.
or a Travis
Um,
Mayer. Yeah.
yeah, and those guys they look they look incredible.
Yes.
And I I it's not constantly like in my head. I'm not like always thinking about how I look, but I have through time I feel to a degree overcome any of those insecurities with how I look. And I love what I've built for myself. I I I'm
Hell yeah.
I'm I'm honored. I'm honored. I love what I've built for myself. I'm I'm grateful. That's the word. I'm grateful and I'm thankful that I get the opportunity to wear this sleeves.
Spacesuit. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and I've worked really hard over the years to uh, adjust it so that I could do more with it. So I could do more with it, and that's really, I think, where the confidence has come from, is not so much with the way that I look, but what I'm capable of doing with my physical body. And that's where a lot of my confidence comes from. And it's something that I've implemented into um, the nature of my programming when I'm working with clients. And from my own experience, I've been able to reap the benefits of developing skills. And when you develop skills, you really reinforce your confidence. And so you've seen it
Take note, parents. Take
hundreds
notes. He just gave some amazing parenting advice right
hundreds
there.
of times, right? You see someone who can't do something, and then you coach them, and then they do it, and they light up, and you can't take that from them. You can't. It's just like they earn that, and they have it, and they can use it, and it's going to be some. It just, for me, it's something that makes me feel good about myself, and it's very obvious when you see it click for someone else too, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what the reaction that you get from someone getting their first double under, or whatever, their pull up, or whatever it is. It really doesn't matter. Anything. That reaction is it's how I want to feel. It's how I want to feel all the time, and it's what's made me such a performance whore in in multiple categories, more than just what I'm doing with my physical body, but how I'm training myself mentally and spiritually, because I started to see that there were other aspects to um, other skills, if you will, that I could develop that would allow me to have that enriching feeling of joy and confidence, from learning something new, and getting better at it. And that's kind of really helped me with my self-image. Um, and I, it's, I still understand that how I look, or how I could look comparatively to how other people look. And I always tell my wife this. My wife will like putz through the gym and like stick her stomach out, and she pretty much still has a six pack. And she'll be like, "Oh my God, I'm so fat." And like right next to her is a person who's maybe actually 200 pounds overweight. I'm just like, Jenny, can't say that. So I understand that and I'm thankful, and I love the physique that I do have, but the reason I love it isn't what most people would think. It's not because of the way that it looks, but it's because of what I'm able to do with it. And that's what's really, I think, help keep me from developing any um any neurotic or kind of image issues that end up paralyzing me, because all I can think about is how ugly I am, or how fat I am, um, or whatever I am. But yeah, if that makes sense.
Totally. I haven't thought about this in 20 years, but you reminded me of something. I didn't have any developed confidence growing up as a child. By that I mean I was the last kid always picked in soccer or whatever. I was
I
the
was
worst
too.
at this. I was always the worst at the spelling bee in the class. I was the first kid to sit down. But my parents loved the shit out of me. So that actually got me to the 51-yard line. That always kept me like, so I wasn't drowned in insecurity. But in the seventh grade, I was in a sewing class, home ec class. I was the only boy in the class, and I had this theory even back then that they put me in there because my name was Sevan and they thought I was a girl. But anyway, I took that class and I was taught how to make handbags and stuffed animals. And I was like, holy shit, I'm so good at this. I couldn't believe that like I could make a stuffed animal from scratch, and that I could cut a pattern, that I could make a bag and put a zipper on it. And I remember, and so I'm instilling those things in my kid at a very, very, very early age. Basically, my 6-year-old got his gray belt, and the instructor said, and it made me tear up. Actually, the instructor Steven said, whispered to me, that will never be taken from him. He'll have that for
Mm.
the rest of his life. And I was like, holy shit. My son just put in 2 years worth of work and
Yeah.
he earned a
Me
gray
too.
belt. And I cannot believe the profound impact that's going to have on him, because I didn't earn anything till I was 16 and it was a paycheck and I spent it. But he just earned something he's going to keep forever. And the second thing that you said that I'd like to give an example of is I am extremely not proud of my body.
Mm.
I have zero pride in my body, and I would always like go to the beach and I would never take my shirt off until I had 1 or 2 beers. But at 49 years old, I have an uncanny ability to play frisbee. I live by the motto that every bad throw is a chance for me to look like a superstar. I can throw a frisbee anywhere. I can throw it around buildings, trees, anything. And I remember that would be another way. If I was out there playing frisbee with you for 10 or 15 minutes, I'd be like, holy shit, what I can do with this body and a frisbee is insane. And then I would feel comfortable taking my shirt off, because I wouldn't care at that point what my body looked like, but I cared about what it was doing. It always takes a little while to get into that, but like I played recently with a couple other 49-year-olds, and if the frisbee went 10 feet away from them, they couldn't catch it. Or if it went
Yeah.
too low, they couldn't catch it. And these are, relatively fit guys. And I was like, oh, I'm not like that at all. Like, if a throw has to be caught, I am the human Labrador. And so I I appreciate that. Like, it's a cool workaround the insecurity. It's a
Mm.
hey, this I don't care if you think my car is ugly or you don't like the paint of my car. It's gonna win all the races, or not even win the races. My car's willing to go as fast as it can, you know.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
um, yeah, all of that stuff's pretty interesting. And going back to what you said about it's funny. There's about what you were saying about your wife about saying I'm fat next to someone who's fat. What's funny is because then the fat person might interpret that as, oh, if they think they're fat, they must think I'm really fat. But it really doesn't work that way, because there's people I think have beautiful bodies who I know most people would think had a worse body than me, worse in quotes, but I actually don't think that.
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh my god, that's a really that dude has a cool body, or that girl has a cool body. But I know most people wouldn't think that, and and maybe I wouldn't even be comfortable in that body, but I still find it sexy or attractive, or I want to go talk to the person. It's really interesting how it doesn't work always both ways. We're just
Yeah.
overcritical of ourselves.
Yeah. Mm.
Going back to the CrossFit thing, about the game scaring people away, and I've talked about this in other podcasts about that was a huge during 2016 and 17 when I was running the media department for HQ. That was a huge debate, back and forth. Are the games helping or are they hurting? And in 2017, when we started the CrossFit podcast, around that time, Greg had actually said to me, hey, I know I said I would never basically do this, but I want to start showing before and after photos of people. And I want to just focus. We already have the tip of the spear, we have the base, we have first responders. Now I want to go to the complete other end, and I want to start getting sick and obese people and the elderly. And I think they overcorrected when they got rid of the media team and they switched the website. But there was basically the primary function of the CrossFit podcast I did was to explore that idea to lower that barrier of entry, for a mental barrier of entry. And we had the largest explosion of L1 sales. Basically, we changed the I want to say the word marketing, but we were not allowed to use that word marketing because Greg believed that we should never put anything out unless it adds value to the brand. We should never try to sell the brand. But we basically changed our message from the L1 is for for trainers and people who want to open an affiliate to, hey, it is the operating manual for the human genome, and that every single person who wants to have that operating manual, here it is, and you should get it. And actually, it's more apropos not for trainers but for unhealthy people. And quickly we started getting stuff we had never seen before. We started getting people in the L1s who were 100 pounds overweight, And it was really, really, really a cool. And then, of course, we were 9 months into it. Everything was skyrocketing at CrossFit Inc. The only metric that we were still struggling with was affiliate retention, but all other metrics were skyrocketing. And then they pulled the media team, and then we had 2 years of and they shut down Facebook and Instagram, and it just free falled. And then the Floyd 19 comment came out, and Greg pulled the chute and was like, "All right, fuck you guys, I'm out." And then the response to the response, a lot of people think that we're in a COVID pandemic. I disagree with that. I think we're in a COVID response fucking nightmare. I think the response to the fire is what has destroyed the world. Destroyed's too strong. Has caused a hiccup in the world, as opposed to the actual match that was lit and people are acting like it's fucking a flamethrower. But
Yeah.
did you see any changes in your affiliate in 17 and 18 when we changed our messaging? Did you feel any of that? And you can feel free to be like, "Fuck no, you guys did a horrible job." But I was so proud of it.
Well, first of all, I want to say, let's go back to the comment, is it helping or hurting?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's helping overall. I think there's growth coming from it.
When you say helping, you mean the games propaganda, the games,
Yep.
the showmanship
Yep.
of the games. Okay.
Yep. I do think it's helping. But and the shift is what was needed, I think, to again to you don't say marketing, right? We want to put content out there that's adding value, but the content shift
I wanted
that
to roll the red carpet out further to people's front doorsteps.
yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And I think it was and it's because I've met Greg a couple times and gotten to hang out with him, and it was always kind of confusing because he was all he wanted to talk about was health and wellness. It was rarely did we ever talk about me as a competitor. We talked about me and my wellness and maybe my client's wellness. We never, ever, I've never talked to him about the sport of fitness. And so I'm actually really happy with the shift that's been made. And who knows, maybe I'll get in trouble for this, but I liked Greg. Man, if we wanted to dig deep enough on all of us, we could find some ignorant shit that we've all done and said, and
we wouldn't even have to dig that far.
Yeah, you wouldn't. You really wouldn't. I think, and we all got shit we need to work on too. So for me to, sit here and talk about ways that Greg needs to clean his life up and needs to act differently is just, that's so ignorant of me to do. I think Greg is a genius and one of the most brilliant minds I've ever had the pleasure to meet with. And I loved his passion for wanting to heal our planet. It seemed that's what I'll remember Greg for. I won't remember him for any sexist comments or racial comments. I will remember him for, and I'm talking about what he said, for him, like the genius he was and his mission to help heal our planet. And I like that he wasn't afraid to call people out. I kind of like I like that essence, that CrossFit.
You mean honesty?
Yeah, dude. People always thought like CrossFit was kind of like a little aggressive or they're not politically correct, but I liked that. I liked that it was no bullshit. And sure, in our social climate, that not being politically correct tends to hurt someone's feelings or piss someone off. But I like that approach.
Politically
And
correct means wrong, by the way. The definition of politically correct is wrong.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've had to wake up to that over the past couple years. But no, I liked it, Sevan. I like the shift. Um, I Everything's really, I think, kind of organically happening really, really well. With maybe minus the dismissal of Greg, and I still think things are going to be all right. But I'm really liking how we've almost kind of divided up the wellness and the fitness. Like
I feel like there is
say
no
for instance,
wellness, by the way. I feel like CrossFit's lost its way right now. I feel like there
yeah,
is no I feel
it's
like there
it's
is no message coming out of what, like, we used to really know what CrossFit stood
yeah,
for. Whether you liked it or not, we were the cure for the world's most vexing problem. We were forging elite fitness. Greg had all of these just lines that just came out of his mouth,
yeah.
right? It's the operating system for the human genome. Now what is it? Now it's like something about happiness. And I
It's
just I don't know what the
political correctness,
yeah, it's political correctness, right?
which is wrong.
Before all energies were put on serving people, and now energies I feel like are being put on telling the world who they serve, and I just don't think that that's a strong message. Or it's a politically correct. I think it's a politically correct message. I
Yeah,
think that
it's a
it
shit
speaks
show
for
right now.
it, it
But
and,
I think everything's going to be okay. I really do. I I think
me
everything's going to
too.
be okay,
Me too, by the
and
way.
things
I
are
think
going to
everything's going to be okay too.
work out for the better. I I think
The good news is
I
it
could
still works. There's not like it still works, right?
yeah.
Like it's still really really difficult, and it's really still really super empowering for people
Hmm.
in all corners and aspects of their life.
I think about that all the time. I'm like I'm so. It took me years and years and years to really figure out what the truth was with like nutrition, and I'm so happy that I wish I would have found CrossFit even sooner, but I'm so happy that I have uh, in in my knowledge and my understanding a curriculum that is effective, fun, and sustainable. Um, and I'm constantly like thankful for what CrossFit has done to change my life. I'm so and it's
And
probably
it
what
promotes,
led
and it's
to
flexible enough to promote experimentation in all those places too, right? In your diet,
of
in your
course,
movement. Yeah, there's
yeah,
tons of, I mean, that's what's kind of so cool about it. Once you get the basics, you can experiment.
yeah, and it's yeah, yeah, you're very right, and I'm so happy that I just it found me or I found it or we found each other and it's been a very in the maybe the most enriching part of my my conscious life the all the childhood I can remember and my adult years um, the involvement that I've had with CrossFit has been some of the most enriching and greatest experiences I've ever had ever and I'm so thankful for that and so I have I don't have anything really bad to say about CrossFit or anything or Greg.
Being that your sight is impaired, have other faculties developed?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. Like, do I have like hypersensitive like hearing or anything? And I actually got these really tiny ears. Um,
Oh,
see
those
those
are
things?
nice. Yeah, those are
Yeah.
nice. They'll
I'm
get bigger as you get older. How old are you, Sam?
I'm 34. I'll
Oh,
be a
they'll
masters
double in
athlete
size
next
by the
year.
time you'll have normal ears when you're 78.
That's perfect.
I'll have
Um,
radar.
yeah, you won't even need a cell phone anymore. You'll
It's a
just
loaded question what I'm asking you because I'm taking you somewhere. But tell me about when you get that question a lot.
all right. I do. Yeah, I get the question a lot, and I there's one thing that I've definitely noticed that's changed significantly. This might not be the answer you're looking for in regards to this question in terms of maybe heightened sensitivity in other areas of my life. But what I've really noticed is because I cannot see, I have to get a lot closer to people. In actual like distance, like I have to get closer to them to see them, and I actually have to get closer to them. And I mean that in a more relational way, because and it goes
Oh, you don't
to
mean
the
you don't mean just physically. You mean to read them. You have to it instigates
I
more
can't
intimacy
yeah
because you're trying to understand. You want to understand them, and you can't just pick up on the nuances
yeah
of
it
facial
would
expressions. Okay.
I'm unable to judge a book by its cover. I can't see it, and that tends to be for a lot of people. My wife, she's she can judge a book by its cover, and she's really good at it, like very spot on. Um, but because I can't see, and it's a lot of things. It's how their eyes are moving. It's the body language. It's yeah, it's just how their facial expressions and stuff. And you can honestly, I've been taking these tactical training courses um, recently, and it's amazing what I've learned in regards to preventing, um, just basically to avoid any conflict with any other human, so that you're not have you just so that you don't have to fight someone, or you don't have to even protect your life. You can just basically avoid it altogether. So just reading certain body language and movements and stuff like that, and I have a difficult time with that. So I tend to get
Sounds
a lot.
racist. Sounds racist. I'm
Yeah,
joking.
I'm sure I'll say something racist, and there'll
I'm
be
sh-
something that will
I'm sh-
make me a
I,
racist. But
it's just one of those
um,
things that people read into. You know what I mean? You see three guys
yeah,
walking down the street towards you, and their pants are hanging down past their fucking butt crack, and you cross the street, and now you're racist. No,
yeah.
actually, I'm not racist.
So
They were
I
three
have
white
to
guys.
go. I have, Jenny, my wife, would be able to see that, and she'd be like, maybe, hey, we should walk this way. Me, can't see. There's some guys over there. Let's go talk
Right,
to
right. Let's
them.
spread the love.
So I end up getting way closer to people. I believe as a result of that, which is pretty counter to my um, preferred kind of personality. I tend to be a little kind of quiet and to myself, and I don't like to be in large groups. But because of that, it's it's putting me through practice with it, and it's become something that now, even though years of my life I did not enjoy that stuff, I actually quite enjoy it now. Um, I enjoy getting closer to people, not just to see them, but to actually know them and hear them and yeah, relationships, man, have become for me. Like I said, I'm still working on this. I still get frustrated from time to time and say some dumb shit. But at this point in my life, the single most important thing that I have in my life is relationships, and the opportunity to make new ones and sustain old ones. And it's the things that I cherish the most, is the opportunity to create that and build that with um, any type of person. It doesn't really matter. I find myself more often than not kind of going out of my way to build relationships with people that seem like they need it. Um, and yeah, so not that I like avoid an opportunity to, go build a relationship with someone who looks like they don't need it, like they have a lot of friends and they have whatever, a lot of money, a lot of, they look really happy. It's not like I try to go find an unhappy, miserable, homeless person every day to go build a relationship with. But to give you more specificity in regards to that statement would be like my work with our non-for-profit. Like I'm right now, and for the past couple, well, 5-6 years, I've been strategically and specifically going out of my way to build relationships with people who have disabilities and helping them become integrated into a fitness program
Not just
in
physical,
gyms.
mental, the whole gambit.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't matter. Anything going on. Physical, mental, emotional. Um, it could just be any. I say this all the time. Like literally any special need. If you can't afford fitness, like, and for good reason. Like for instance, I have this group of, they call it inner city kids. That really doesn't exist in Quincy. Um, it's just it's not like a Chicago, but maybe like 1% of what that's like there. So there's maybe like you could kind of call it inner city, but it's not like that here. And there's these inner city kids that we work with. There's a non-for-profit called Teen Reach, and our non-for-profit partners up with them. And these are just underprivileged kids. If it was an adult that couldn't afford, if you're an adult that can't afford CrossFit, it's not, your problem isn't a financial issue. You have a time management issue. You have ethical and moral issues. You have bigger problems than your finances. Like your finances aren't the reason you're struggling. You're struggling because you're making poor. You're not making adult decisions, really.
Yeah, it's a prioritization issue.
Yeah, that's perfectly put. It's a priority issue. It's a value issue. You're not valuing the right things, and you're not prioritizing the right things. So very well put. So these kids, they have a special need. They don't have Down syndrome. They're not missing arms and legs, but they don't have parents that can support them. And so we will go out of our way to offer our services to them free of charge. So yeah, it doesn't matter what your need is. If you have a special circumstance, and when I say special circumstance, it means to me it's going to require unique treatment in the way that you might not be able to fit into our kind of traditional, generally physically prepared group classes. We've gotten much better at being able to integrate special needs individuals into our group classes, but for the most part, our group classes tend to be, for people who are generally physically fit. I do have people who, I got some older gentlemen who are in my class. We used to have like special classes, like where I would have all the old people over here, and then I would have all the special needs people over in this corner, and then I would have my generally physically fit people over in the main section. I've completely stopped doing that, and my goal now is, and this is probably more CrossFit-esque too, this infinitely scalable program, and I'm working to get every single person into class, and we're just kind of working with people one-on-one. Like I mentioned, that Teen Reach group, some just underprivileged kids. They don't really have any. They definitely have some trauma that will probably inhibit the rate at which they develop, maybe comparatively to someone who came from a loving, supportive household. But so they tend to need some one-on-one attention. Just like if I had, I'm sure you're familiar with James Foster. He's my original OG adaptive athlete that we had
Oh, King
here.
James. I see him all over your
Yep,
Instagram, right?
King James, man, he's a legend. But that guy takes classes now. He could run a class. He could coach a class now. And before he needed to have some one-on-one time, some special attention. And that's when I say special needs, that you just and sometimes I get regular people who are special needs, and they need some special attention, and we will appoint that to them and make sure that they have maybe an assistant coach with them or something like that. But yeah, man, I want fitness for everyone here at Q Town, and we're working really hard at it. And we're doing everything that we can to try to reach people um, who 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 weren't having things like this made available to them, whether it be a financial reason with a child, or it be you're missing a leg, or you have Down syndrome, or you're 300 pounds overweight. Like we want to make our gym available to anyone and everyone, and I believe that is going to change the world.
I want to get back to the scene thing, but to jump on what you're saying, it's one of the things that really, really frustrates me about the trend of the world and some of the things that have happened since Greg's left, to talk about inclusivity as being an issue with CrossFit, because relative to the rest of the world, it's the most inclusive phenomenon I've ever seen on the planet. By that, I mean, you'll
Hands
work out.
down.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll work out with someone with Down syndrome next to you, someone with a turban next to you, someone who's 13 years old next to you, someone who's 80 years old next to you, someone
Yeah.
who came from the inner city, someone who's worth $2 billion. It is, it is, it is, it's something we don't talk about because we take for granted in the community, but it is
You
crazy.
can't talk
If
about it.
you if you want a gay, Jewish,
You'll get in trouble.
Haitian midget, you will, and you want to work out next to him, you will more likely see it in a CrossFit gym than any other environment. And why is that? Because the CrossFit focus was on bettering human beings, all of them. And it took my mom, probably 5 or 10 years to realize this. She's 77 now. She started CrossFit at 69, but she used to always think she was the weak link, or she wouldn't go on partner day workouts. And I think slowly she's realizing, no, shit, that's my contribution to show the 15-year-olds and the
Mm.
30-year-olds that at 77 you can still do this. And she, at that age, and I don't blame her, because we're all insecure in our own right. It's hard to imagine the contribution she's making subconsciously and consciously, to see a little old lady who has no background in fitness working out right next to you. And it's really one of the amazing byproducts of the kind of businesses that you own. You will actually get to interact with people you would have never met, and you will have a really deep shared common experience with them.
Yeah,
It's
I think
it's
honestly,
awesome.
Sevan, it's like it's people have been pretty severely brainwashed, and I'm guilty of it. Like
Yeah, me too.
I I've there's been things that I've been ignorant of, and also been trained to believe.
Correct.
And anyone who's who's on their soapbox claiming that we need to be more inclusive in CrossFit, they're not opening they're not in the affiliates, and they're not opening their eyes to what's happening there, because I 100% agree with you. My gym is besides maybe a church, is the most
Well said. Well
inclusive
said.
place in our town, hands down. And I would bet that for any other CrossFit gym in any state, in any country, probably besides the churches tend to do a really, really good job with their diversity. But this is the most diverse place in our town.
trying to
And
make
you're
CrossFit
right.
gyms
There's
more trying to make CrossFit gyms more inclusive is like, let's say your carpet's wet and you spend all day drying your carpet, but really there's a pipe under your floors that's leaking water. But you're too stupid to go under there and fix the pipe. And what I mean, any lack of inclusivity is a societal problem, and actually CrossFit's the cure. Stop focusing on the manifestation of society. It's
yeah.
there's a leak under that carpet, and you look like an idiot for trying to continuously dry the carpet. Get under there and fix the pipe. And ironically, that the CrossFit is the way to fix that pipe too. It's so sad to see something so benevolent and so good get shit on. But
Mm,
but
yeah.
it's just a lack of depth perception. It's a lack of people having a range of possibilities, that it's just not a carpet spontaneously becoming wet, that hey, there's actually a deeper underlying problem, and actually the carpet's fixing it. I want to ask you about when going back to the perception thing. There was something you had an experience in Peru before you had a baby, and that's why I
Yeah.
asked you. That's why I asked you about if you have any other developed. You feel like there's any other developed perceptions, and tell me about that. I don't even want to say anything about what I read about it, but will you tell me about why you were in Peru and what that?
Yeah.
Were you married yet at that point?
Yeah. We were
You were
married.
married,
Me
but
and
with
Jen have
no
been
child. By the way,
no child. Me and
congratulations
Jen had,
on Star.
thank you. I never could imagine it being this cool, and it's been quite an upgrade for me and Jenny, our relationship, our
Ooh, I like that
our
upgrade. Yes, it is an
our
upgrade.
emotional intelligence, our just a lot of things have been, yeah, been upgraded. I find myself being much more productive with my time and managing it much better. It kind of demands it, to a degree. Well, it may demand it, but you still have to respond to that. And my response has been, I've been really happy with it. I'm not a very organized guy. Now I'm booking things out in my calendars like months ahead of time. I started a podcast like that. That's
Yeah, quit
unheard
that.
of
You're
for.
quit that. You're taking listeners away from me. Quit that shit.
I doubt it. That's funny though. But people, I asked, who should I interview next, and I got like a ton of people saying you. So
And I gotta tell that's so. I don't know who I'm gonna interview or why I'm gonna interview them, but like I'm like, okay, 10 people are telling me to get Sam Dancer on. All right, throw him on the list.
yeah, so I'm adding you to my list too. But yeah, so me and Jenny, we've been married for 7 years. It would have been like 5 years when we went to Peru. And this was like 50% bucket list, 50% we needed help. Um, Jenny and I had just had the worst year of our marriage, the hardest year of our marriage. And we hadn't really had any trials before that. Everything had been going very smoothly for us. We'd been traveling the world with each other, just enjoying each other's company and being best friends. And then come 2018, we decide that we want to train a team for the games to go uh, win the affiliate cup. And we move out to San Diego, and we're training feverishly to go win first place in the team division. And the wheels started falling off before the season even really started. I I got a blood test and found out that I had Hashimoto's and like no testosterone. Jenny had some gut issues, and we we went to work on that stuff. I ended up able to treat my Hashimoto's. I got my testosterone back up, and it took her a while to get her gut issues figured out. But
Did you treat it with
that
changing? How did you treat it, real quick, in a
it
nutshell? I
was
don't want
all
to lose the story.
well. It was all. I would say most of it was related to, well, it's definitely a combination of things. If I had to give you a one answer, it was nutrition.
Okay.
But it's not, you can't, that's an incomplete answer as well. There's an
Okay.
emotional side to it. I Now these days I think there's a spiritual component to it. Like your beliefs literally, in my opinion, control your reality. And adjusting some beliefs, um, working on ourselves emotionally, and not and choosing to react in a way that would be more supportive of our well-being. And and we would see we have a whoop strap usually. I don't wear it year round, but when I train I put my whoop strap on, and we would see that like the way that we were speaking to one another was affecting our recovery. So kind of adjusting the way that we communicated a little bit with each other, understanding that our body was in distress, heading toward disease. Mine was diseased, and something needed to give. So we need to remove some sort of stress so that we could allow our body the space and time to heal. So we dialed down the training a little bit, started improving our nutrition, making sure that we're eating enough food. To be honest, during that time, I kind of fell prey to I'm like so embarrassed about this, to the plant-based kind of culture. And I'm started moving a lot of my nutrition towards being plant-based, which
You shouldn't be embarrassed, man. That's what life's about, experimenting, right?
it
It's
is.
all
It is.
just experiment. I've been vegan before. It's a great experiment. If you've never been
And
vegan in your life, you should try it.
it was. I honestly, I learned a lot. I felt there were some significant changes that I experienced that were positive in early on. And the same thing with like plant-based, keto, carnivore, whatever. I would get good results early on, but the sustainability of it ended up being a problem.
You sound like me.
And
How come I don't have your body?
And going through a health crisis that I went through is really, I think it's unfortunate that I had to go through that, but it's what really woke me up to finding out a sustainable solution for my nutrition. And that led me to the pro metabolic community, which, that's kind of a different story. So
let's not lose Peru. Let's not lose Peru.
Yeah. Part of our reason for going to Peru was we wanted to heal. And we also, I don't even know how you call it. I like psychedelics. I think that they've been a tremendous amount of help for me. Expanding my consciousness has been a really eye-opening thing, and it opened my eyes to certain things that I was doing that were inhibiting me from living optimally. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed learning new things and figuring out what things were getting in the way of me being my best self, if you will. So this Peru trip was to go into the jungle and participate in an ayahuasca ceremony. And ayahuasca, the active compound in it is DMT. And that was the only, for the most part, like the only psychedelic that I hadn't tried. And I wanted to try it. And so the combination of me wanting to try something new, and we needed some restoration in our relationship, and we also needed to we just needed to figure some shit out. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to go check something off the list and figure our shit out. And honestly, the healing that took place in preparation for the ceremony was the greatest thing that we did experience. Because we were so terrified of what was to come. So we just started purging everything. And I'd be like, hey, Jenny, remember this time that I said this and I did this? And I was like, yo, I'm sorry for that. Like, that was stupid. And I just want you to know that
you were doing a preemptive strike on the demons that could come out.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, it was great.
I'm throwing some of these buckets overboard before fucking the big wave
and it
comes.
was. Yes, it was that. It was like, I want to get rid of all my shit so I don't get embarrassed in front of everybody and dump all my shit out.
Right.
So you got it. We all start, and Bickle was with us. Matt Bickle was with us as well. And so we're all doing it. And it was funny because nobody, like, whenever I would say, "Hey, Jen, remember this time that I did this?" And I was holding on, I had guilt. She didn't even remember it. So we learned that, like, guilt was probably the most damning thing, um, that we were doing to our physical, emotional, and spiritual bodies. And it was all us. We were doing it to ourselves. Nobody else was. Jenny wasn't making me feel guilty. I was making myself feel that, and it was harming us in some way, mentally, physically, or spiritually. Maybe all of them. And so that was really prophetic to us, to have that experience before the experience. And we were really stoked on that. We were all like, "Wow, that."
Maybe we don't even need to do the DMT.
Yeah,
Time to go home.
we really all did kind of feel that way. But we're like, "Man, we came to the jungle. Let's go get high and see how it all plays out." So fast forward to taking the actual ayahuasca. I had a, like, 1-to-1 experience. 1-to-1 being 1 part pure bliss, amazing, 1 part pure hell. Worst experience of my entire life. And, like, so bad that it almost made, even though it was literally to the dot, like, it was literally 90 minutes of pure bliss and 90 minutes of pure hell. The the pure hell was really close to outweighing the pure bliss. It was that horrible and that hellacious of an experience, and just that awful. I basically felt like I was, oh man, I felt like I was stuck by myself in this. It was this dark, had kind of a reddish hue to it, abandoned, like, fairgrounds almost. And I was by myself there, and I could kind of, like, hear people around me that were kind of, like, laughing at me and, like, calling me really bad things and threatening to do terrible things to me, but I never really saw them. So it almost sounded like, just like, this music was playing, this horrible soundtrack was playing in the background while I was walking around this um, abandoned, um, like, evil fairgrounds. And it's hard to explain. So that was so, and it felt like I was there for 1,000 years, and I was
You
there
know
for
what?
90 minutes.
Right. And what compounds these issues, whether you're on psychedelics or not, is you have this issue and you're supposed to go this way with it and just accept it. But what the brain does is it goes, "Oh shit, is this ever going to end? So will this ever be over?" And so now you got two
Yeah,
problems. You're being chomped on
yeah,
by Godzilla, and instead of trying to get away, you're like, "When will this end?"
yeah.
It's such a weird mechanism the brain goes through. Anyway, sorry, go
It
on.
was, yeah, it was terrifying. I thought it would never end. And my buddy Matt is right next to me. It's so weird because you're still in actual physical reality, but your mind's also in this holographic, like, reality, which, let me note, seems more real than physical reality, than this experience that I'm having right now on my hard desk with walls, things that I can actually even touch and say that, "Oh, that's real." The the visions were more real, more vivid, more everything than actual reality. Um, so that was the shit show part. The bliss part. Luckily, the bliss part happened first, um, or else I probably would have been scared to death and run off into the woods or something. Um, During the blissful part, I met up with 2 people, who looked pretty human for the most part. They looked a little bigger than kind of the standard human being, a little bit. They were very well built, um, very tan, and they had lots of, like, jewels on. It looked like a scene out of, like, 300.
And their
Um,
eyes are a little bigger.
just like it
Were
just
their eyes a little bigger?
everything was a little bigger. Like they
Okay.
were just like kind of bigger humans. Um, but very, very, very well built, very beautiful skin, and really ornate jewelry. The woman had a big staff, a big like stick with a jewel on the top of it, and the dude had this huge like saber with jewels in it. And they introduced me to my child, Star. They said we would like first we exchanged some words telepathically. I'm not in my body when I'm visiting with them. I'm just like basically my consciousness was there. I didn't have like a physical body, but they did, and we never spoke with our mouths. But they gave me a big embrace. They told me how excited they were to have me here and to get to show me what they were going to show me. And that lasted like 10, 15 minutes, just like nonstop. Like basically, if you hadn't seen a relative for a really long time, and we were just like energetically hugging each other and kind of like yeah, telling each other how much we loved each other and how happy we are that we get to have this experience together. And then they show me in the corner, um, there's this ball that's kind of like just spinning around and making a bunch of crazy shapes, and but staying like this morphing ball of kind of blue and purple light. And they said, "This is your child Star." And they actually even gave me the arrival date. They never quantified whether or not it was a boy or a girl. They're just like, "This is, you know, this is your child." So I didn't really know how. I didn't know if it was a. In the moment, I thought it was a boy. I think dudes just do that naturally. Like dudes want a boy and chicks want a chick. But in the moment, yeah, I got to meet my child Star, and same thing there. We got to like swirl around each other and kind of like energetically hug each other and tell each other how happy we were to get to meet each other on this plane, if you will, this level of multi-dimensional reality and existence. And then they gave me the date of her arrival, and yeah, and that worked. That was the date. They they gave me 10/20, and she was born on the 10th month of the year 2020, and we named her Star. So not sure what the hell that really was. I have my speculations as to what I experienced. Most of it's based on Christian theology, um, which I I enjoy. I've done a lot of world religion study, and I actually have my story of even becoming a Christian is a pretty radical. It's equally as crazy as meeting your future child in a vision. So I tend to lean against Christian theology the most whenever I'm trying to understand the nature of our reality, and I I still will bounce around from it's so cool. One of my members is a theology and philosophy professor, so we're constantly getting to talk about different theologies and different philosophies. And sometimes other theologies and philosophies help me maybe understand something a little bit better than just the Christian theology. And but I tend to lean up most against the Christian theology when I'm trying to get a better understanding of what the hell's going on. And
Were you planning on having kids?
no,
Had you and Jen talked about having kids? No, you were not.
this is good. The day before we found out, this is two things that are really good. So a year to the date exactly that I met Star is when we found out that we were pregnant. And then the day before that, we decided that we were going to wait 5 more years before we discussed having children.
Put this on the back. Let's put this on the back burner for 5 years. What, to have a kid? No, to talk about it. I love it.
Talk about it.
I love it.
Dude, we were having so much fun. We were having the time of our lives together. Just traveling nonstop and
but before you go
meeting
into
new
this,
people.
did the trip to Peru help the relationship? Did you guys, when you got back, was there, I mean, obviously there's still work to do, but were you like, did it help?
Yeah, by time the trip even came to, we had pretty well resolved a lot of our issues. But that's if we wouldn't have gone to Peru, everything would have been fine. But I do think the trip to Peru kind of expedited some results, for sure. Definitely kind of put our healing on steroids to a degree, and allowed it to happen just a little bit quicker. But it would have happened with or without the Peru trip, because it was already happening. I think really well. When I booked the trip, which was probably like 6 months out from when it was actually going to take place, was probably like the worst when we were at our worst, which was probably like 2 months before the CrossFit Games.
And when you mean you were having problems, just are you talking about just like bickering, fighting, tension, not communicating
we couldn't even
well?
look at each other.
Okay.
We could not even look
okay.
at each other.
Okay.
And it just seemed like
just butting heads on just stuff that's like ridiculous to butt heads on when you look back at it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. It just like anything would just it did. It was
Listen
just
up,
it
people.
was a shit show.
It's totally normal. If you haven't been through that in a relationship, or if you quit at that point, man, double think it, because if you
Here's what I have
abandon
to
that
say.
relationship, you're gonna end up with the same thing somewhere else.
Yeah,
You gotta work through that
100%.
shit. Yep.
Yeah, like it's getting our blood tested was probably the best thing that we did for our relationship.
Wow.
And even now to this day, if we notice like we're bickering with each other or we're being kind of shitty with one another, we laugh about it now, because we know that it probably has something to do with being underfed, underhydrated, or under recovered. Pretty much 99% of the time, you could boil her being a bitch and me being a dickhead down to those three things 99% of the time. And so now I think of it like this: if I'm being a dickhead and you can recognize, you're like,
yeah,
you're being an asshole, I'm like, that tells me that my testosterone's low. That's how I've been able to navigate a lot of this stuff now, because when I got the blood results and I could translate the way that I felt to these biomarkers, I was able to now identify the way that I felt with these low numbers. So if I ever start feeling the way that I felt, I'm like, oh, shit, my testosterone's tanking and my endocrine system's not working well. Probably because I'm overstressed, I'm underfed, underhydrated, and under-recovered. So that's probably been one of the greatest things that we've ever done for our relationship, and the thing that I recommend to everybody, even if you're not in a relationship. Like if take a look under the hood, look at your blood, figure out where you can improve, and you will end up living a much happier and joyful life. And when you are happy and healthy, you don't get rattled as easy. You just don't. It's real. Like when I'm firing on all cylinders and my hormones are really good and I'm well fed and I'm well rested and I'm hydrated, good luck pissing me off. Good luck taking me out of that state that I'm in. it's really, really difficult to, um, yeah, to knock me down when
It's
I'm that resilient and healthy. But when I'm feeling like shit, it takes nothing to piss me off. It takes nothing for me to, to start an argument. It just and it all makes so much sense to me now. So I'm able to use my mood as a diagnostic tool for my health and wellness, if that makes sense.
totally. You wrote something in one of your posts. So I heard that when I hear terms like anti-racism or toxic masculinity, I immediately know because I know how words work and I know how the mechanism of the brain works. I know that that's just word fuckery. That is just propaganda. There's no fucking such thing as toxic masculinity. There's masculinity, and then there's assholes. There's racist people. There's people who believe in the idea of racism or practice racism, and I'm not going to go down there. I'm going to stick to the toxic masculinity. But one of the things that's a defining characteristic for me, and anyone can define what they want, but for masculinity, and you talk about this in your Instagram, is there's a week before your woman starts menstruating, and a very strong masculine attribute. You didn't call it. I don't think you called it a masculine attribute. I think you were just talking about being a good partner. But I think it's a very strong masculine attribute is to hold the space during that week. That
Mm-hmm.
week that you're prior to your woman menstruating is time for you to be stoic, time for you to suck it up, time to hold the space, time to stay
Mm-hmm.
present for your wife. That is there's a tremendous amount going on in the woman, and that's like one of the and I tie this into what you're saying about really important to take care of yourself in that week and not, God, I hate this word, trigger your wife. Do not engage in her process. You are there to stay present and channel the highest levels of energy and even support her is not the right word. Support yourself not to fuck up. Be present. Do not get caught in anything that will make her experience worse. That is
Yeah.
your week too.
Anything
When
anything that will make you engage her in a way that's going to um not not help her.
yeah, yeah.
And almost any engagement at all at that time
And in the
is
most shallowest way, I want to say that women, there's and I don't know if this is true, but this is my sort of self explanation for it. There's a strong emotional component that comes up in them at that point, and they'll start to believe their emotion and intellectually try to defend it. It's your job not to try to unfuck them at that point. They'll get to that on their own. It's your job to stay present and listen, like just really, really be present, like the kind of presence you feel after you do 100 burpees for time. You're not going to
yeah.
engage your wife in a fucking stupid emotional fight if you're starving for oxygen after 100 burpees. You have to get
Yeah.
into that, and yeah, and I'm not saying it's easy, by the way. I'm not saying
Well, I'll
I'm
tell
not
you what
suggesting it's easy, but it's a very strong masculine attribute. And
what
to
makes
not
it
do it, I don't
easier.
think is masculine toxicity. I just think it's you need to work on your masculinity.
Yeah. And what makes it easier is it kind of goes back to the blood test thing, is the tracking and knowing. And the post that you're talking about, I think it was probably the one we started keeping track of Jenny's just ovulation
Oh
cycle
yeah, yes, yes.
and in relationship to the moon, and it just made me hyper aware of where she was at in that cycle. Now, granted, in my opinion, when you're healthy, when a woman is healthy, um, she's not going to have these really wild um, TMS symptoms. And she's, but if you are a little uneasy, then you tend to have a little bit more heavier symptoms. Let's we've gone this far without talking about COVID. What are the symptoms like of a healthy person?
Asymptomatic,
There are none.
right?
There's zero, right? And the symptoms of an unhealthy person are, line them
Sickness,
up,
death,
you know.
prolonged after effects because of the war that raged inside you with your T cells and SARS, it does damage, and the more
Exactly.
unhealthy you are, the everything's worse.
The
Yeah.
worse it is.
Yep.
So, and we've been able to see that in Jenny's period as well. And we can use those really similar diagnostic tools that we were using or talking about before with the blood test. If I'm acting like a dickhead, I know my testosterone's probably a little tanked. Same thing for her. If she's having crazy symptoms around her period, emotional highs and lows, fatigue, like pain, like we've normalized these symptoms. We've called them, that's normal, that's common to have these. But for a healthy person, they don't exist, not nearly to the degree that we are normalizing them. And she too is able to use that as feedback for, all right, I'm probably underfed, underhydrated, under recovered. And
it's interesting when you say that, I want to be defensive, and that's but you're right, and that's the same way people want to be defensive when you tell them, hey, you're 30 years complicit in your demise, and that's why fucking SARS-CoV-2 is jacking you up. It's funny, you're and I'm sure some listeners are going to be defensive when they hear that. No, it's a real phenomenon. It's a real phenomenon. He's not suggesting it's not a real phenomenon. He's saying that the phenomenon has symptoms that are worse, that manifest in a bad way when you're not healthy. Like, I get it. I see the direct parallel.
Yeah. And it's really simple to understand when we, again, when we look at this virus issue, and like we just talked about, how does a healthy person, what are a healthy person's symptoms versus an unhealthy person's symptoms? And it's very easy to understand when you look at it like that. And it's really, the worse off you are with your health, the worse your symptoms are going to be. It's just,
are you a good swimmer,
some people
Sam?
don't want to hear that, and it's hard to stomach it. But it's just, it's the reality of it. A healthy body that, like, it just doesn't really get sick and be diseased. And when I say sick and diseased, I mean that on all sorts of levels. So if you feel uneasy emotionally, we can tie it back into your health. If you feel, if all these symptoms could be tied back into your health and wellness, and we treat them as some sort of like this phenomena that just like a virus. It just like, I'm sick with depression, I'm sick with anxiety, and it's so funny to me that we don't fucking think of our food as, and our water and our air and our relationship with nature as the primary culprit to us being well. It blows my mind that this is not. I was literally just a couple nights ago consulting with a friend. His wife has cancer, and he asked me what I would do if Jenny had cancer, and I could tell you, I said, this is exactly what I would do. If my wife was in a hospital and she was getting treatment for cancer, my job would be to make sure that she had the best water and she had the best food. That I would control what I could, and I would get her the best medicine possible, and that would be the best food and the best water that I could find. And I, like, it starts, it's that, like, where do people think, like, the chemicals that are, the minerals that are controlling our body come from? Like, what the heck is so difficult to understand about our food and our water and our air being the thing that kind of controls our well? I said earlier, I do believe that there's some spiritual and emotional components to this, but generally speaking, when it comes to our physical health, the food that we're eating and the water that we're drinking, the air that we're breathing, are going to be what controls how we feel. And it just blows my mind that this is not.
Sam,
So,
I'm reading this book Range, and we've all heard the phrase that a hammer only sees nails, and it's a fantastic book because people just hear that and they're like, yeah, that's a cute thing, or a thief only sees wallets and purses. The smartest people in the world are the most myopic people in the world, generally speaking. And it's very, very, very difficult for these really smart people who are hammers, doctors, physicians, scientists, to see any other way but their way. They're so, and it's mind boggling to us idiots because we're like, uh, excuse me, like they're trying to figure out still how to drive a car across water, and me and you are like, nah, dude, let's ride the boat and drink a beer, and they just can't see it. They cannot see it. Or they argue the limitations for the public instead of believing in the public. Oh, we'll never get everyone in that boat. Well, then let's build another boat. Like they're so determined to drive this car across the lake. And it's just yeah, it is truly mind-boggling to see how many really, really intelligent people have fallen for what doesn't make any sense to me and you. Like,
no sense.
yeah, you don't even have
And
to add anything to. I'm not even asking you to take vitamin D. I'm just telling you to quit eating sugar and quit eating refined carbohydrates. That's it. That's it. You don't got to take vitamin D, no zinc. I mean, I'm okay with taking those things, and I do take those things because I believe some of the hype. But
on that note, I've learned quite a bit from doing podcasts recently, and some things that have really shifted my perspective on really any supplementation. Um, and give you this little kind of nugget that really helped me understand how and why even supplementing things that are natural could end up being problematic.
I
And
like it. Tell me.
there's and this just was a no-brainer to me. Um, Nowhere in nature are you going to. Uh-oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Did my video go out?
I
That just happens once in
Just
a
so
while.
you know, it says there was an issue with the recording. Please restart the studio. Should I hit restart or should I just leave that up there?
No, keep talking.
Okay.
Because everything looks good on my end. We're gonna wrap this up
Okay.
as soon as you say this anyway. But God, I hope this was so good. I hope we didn't lose it. So tell me, I'm really curious about the
Um,
supplementation
yeah.
thing. You
So
got an example?
nowhere, nowhere in nature can we find these isolated supplements. They all work synergistically with other
Mm,
compounds. So when we start taking these high doses of vitamin C, these high doses of zinc, these high doses of whatever, vitamin C, we're taking them in ratios that aren't found in nature and without their partners, if you will. Um, and so really if we want to prescribe the best medicine, we need to look at nature, and we need to stop trying to isolate things from nature and call that medicine, because you the medicinal properties are coming from the relationship that nature has with itself and with us. Well, we are part of nature, and that's been one of the most profound things that I've really learned from the guests that I've had on my podcast, is our health comes down to our relationship with nature. And are we getting sunlight? Are we getting clean air? Are we getting clean mineralized water? Are we getting good food that has wise cultivation practices around it? And when I say that, I'm talking about the quality of our soil and the um, and well, depending on what route we want to take, like, are they like commercial industry, just the chemicals and the fertilizers and the rodenticides and the fungicides and all these things that we're using and spraying on. It's really no different than what is happening with people right now. We have to come up with all these cocktails to basically keep people alive. and we are doing the same thing to plants and animals. We have to inject and spray all these different steroids and fertilizers and stuff to keep this shit alive, because it's everything is so, the environment is so trashed. And we're doing the same thing to people too. But our health comes down to our relationship with nature. Are we getting good sun? Are we getting plenty of sun? Are we getting quality air? Are we getting good nutrition through our food? And we have to look at what our food is. And yeah, that's, and like I was talking about with the vitamins and the supplements and stuff, if you're going to be taking vitamins and supplements, and there's companies out there that are doing this, we need to look at it in a holistic way, rather than this isolated, in this isolated manner. We need to start looking at things wholly, and using these whole food supplements, whole foods really, to treat ourselves. And like I said, nowhere in nature can you go find isolated hormone D and isolated zinc. It's not just like hanging out. It's always in conjunction and with other things. And those other things are really important to the function of that thing that we're supplementing. So it's definitely changed my mind on, and I've since then been diving into, what are some of the negative effects of mega dosing a vitamin D or mega dosing zinc. And sure, we say these things are impactful and important and necessary to our health, but I think how we're getting it, the delivery method is equally as important, if not more important, than the substances that we're consuming. And what I mean by that is, yeah, things just work together. Things just work together, and it's important that we're being supportive of the way things were designed. And when we start manipulating
Wow, that
things,
says it
and
all right there. Being supportive of the way
it
things are designed.
yeah, and there's
Don't
this,
drive your car on the roof, people. It's designed to run on the wheels.
yeah, so,
Imagine if
and
your
it's
car
so
ran out of gas. Imagine if your car ran out of gas, and instead of putting gas in it, you put another car behind it to push it around. Would that be fucking stupid or what? And that's what we have as a society. They just
keep
selling you
getting more
fucking another
cars to
car.
push it around.
Yeah, they just sell you another car, push around. What's wrong with the car in front? It's out of gas. Oh yeah, this is a good idea. Let's get a big truck and push it from the back.
Yeah, man,
It is
it's
absurd. I'm really proud of that
it is
metaphor, by the way. Sam, I wanted to talk about your green Jeep. I want to talk about paintballs with Josh Bridges. I want to talk about the swallowed lip ring. I wanted to talk about what it means to be open to love. I wanted to talk about more about your shorts. I want to talk about the only post you ever pulled down on your Instagram account. I wanted to talk about the opposite of courage is conformity. That is really good. Being sexually assaulted. Why you chose a home birth. I want to talk about your child's name. We didn't even talk about kids. Get married. Why did you have a baby? Have you ever bought a brand new car? My notes go on and on as I dig through your Instagram, but I have to go and you have to go.
Yeah,
So
this honestly, those were all the things that I was anticipating talking about too. I thought we would get into a little bit more of the kind of standard cultural climate issues that we're dealing with right now, with the absurdity behind a lot of the policies that have been put in place from COVID, and some of the prescriptions that have also been dealt out, and how we're trying to incentivize people to do some of these treatments. And
Oh,
And it's the opposite of health. And it's so
do you want to
obvious.
talk about that? Do you want to jump back on and do another one sometime?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Anytime, Sevan.
You want to know
Sorry,
the truth? I'm always afraid to bring that stuff up with people because I'm not sure who's comfortable about it with it.
yeah.
So like,
Well, you know what? We have it needs to be talked about.
yeah,
There just
okay,
needs to
good.
be an adult
Let,
conversation around it. And even if we can't perfectly and professionally articulate all the information, there's nothing wrong with us as adults having a conversation about something. And if we're not allowed to talk about it, then that's a serious problem.
okay,
And I
I
think we
agree.
can
I
start
agree
addressing
100%.
that just by talking. Just by
I kind
talking.
of
We
hide
might not
behind
get it
my
all right.
yeah. I kind of hide behind my Instagram to talk about it. But you're right. I would love to
Hey,
talk
that's
about
a
it with
dangerous place. It's way more dangerous to talk about it on Instagram than it is on a podcast. On
well,
Instagram,
I'm unemployed and I'm not selling anything, so I've been just letting it
just
fly,
ripping it.
ripping it.
You're crazy, bro.
Sam,
I love it.
thank you.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure.